Oh my god, this is 47 minutes. I mean, I love this shit, like psychics, faith healers, and all that, but god damn. Uh, Fuck it, we'll run it for a minute. Or for a little bit.
In 1806, the small town of Leeds
Also,
in the
this is
United
redundant. All
Kingdom
psychics
was
are
thrown
fake.
into an apocalyptic frenzy when a chicken began to lay eggs inscribed with the words, "Christ is coming." Crowds would travel
Easy
great
tier 1,
distances
Nana.
to stare in awe and terror as the chicken laid these prophetic words. Some saw it as a sign of salvation, others as the beginning of the end times. But the truth was a little less biblical, as it was discovered that the chicken's owner,
Yeah, I love that channel,
Mary
Whisker.
Bateman, also known as the Yorkshire Witch, was painting the eggs herself and reinserting them into the chicken.
It's a good plan. It would still work today.
Wow, what a ridiculous story, but in the 200 years since, it's one that's played out over and over and over. This woman can channel the spirits of dead Aztec warriors, this man can perform psychic surgery with just his bare hands, this man can vomit up interdimensional gemstones,
Whoa!
and this man will call grandma a bitch.
No. Is your mom not nice?
Oh, my mother's the best.
Because I can't tell you what you want to hear. I can only tell you what they're showing me. And if he's calling your mother a bitch, I'm going to pass it on.
The details change, but the story is always the same. A person claims to have supernatural powers and profits off the people.
That's, Brocco. Fuck, what's his name?
That's actually a pretty lucrative industry. According to a recent Gallup poll, 40% of people believe
Brocco,
that
I think his
humans
name
can
is.
possess psychic abilities, despite this
Brazo.
never
Brocco?
being proven in
Whatever.
the thousands of scientific studies carried out on it. And if you're one of those 40%, look, I get it, psychic powers would be
Thanks for
rad,
resuscitation
and
touches.
I'm not going to say it's completely impossible for forces to exist that currently lie
I'm not
outside the
seismic.
perceptions of modern science, but I am saying that any case of this I have encountered are at best gross distortions of reality rooted in psychological
Half of these people he's showing right now, we
and
have
at
watched on
worst,
stream.
some of the darkest things I've ever seen.
This is pretty cute, actually.
And
We
we'll
made
get
a couple
there, but
videos
first
on
I
these
wanna
people.
ask, if there's really zero evidence in favor of the existence of psychics, then why do so many people believe in them? For me, that answer comes down to two simple principles.
People want to
And
believe.
to talk about the first, let's look at one of the arguably less harmful psychic practices, astrology. Not to be confused with astronomy, which is just nice old people
Thanks to
staring
Risa
at the sky.
Palestine and
Astrology
Tofu.
is the practice of looking a trillion-mile away cosmic bodies and reading our future from them. The most
That'd be a
popular
good plan,
form of
Lobster.
which is horoscopes. Again, putting aside just how many times astrology's been disproved, maybe you've had the experience of reading your own daily horoscope and thinking, I do like it when my home is clean. Maybe I will consult a spiritual advisor now.
that
And
does
maybe
sound about
the
right.
phenomenon of people finding horoscopes weirdly relatable is very common, and the reason for this isn't cosmic, it's psychological, and it's
There's nothing
called
wrong with liking
paranormal.
astrology. It's
In
just,
1949,
it's not like a
study took
real
place in
thing.
the
It's
University
just
of
for fun.
California, where a student was asked to answer a series of questions. Their answers used to build a personality profile. That student then asked to rate their personality profile on a scale of 1 to 5 for accuracy. And the student, impressed with how insightful the profile was, awarded it a 5, only to discover
People take it
that
too
the
seriously?
same
Yeah.
identical personality profile had been given to each of their 39 classmates, nearly all of whom had rated the profile as highly accurate specifically to them, with an average rating of 4.2 and only 5 students out of 39 giving it lower than a 4, when in fact the actual text was just pulled from a local horoscope. The
Nice.
study's been replicated many times, the conclusion
Thanks to
being
Tier 1
that
Stevie
people will
and Resub
believe
Jin.
very general statements as genuine descriptors of themselves as long as those statements are positive in nature, the exact kind of
Shocking.
statements that horoscopes are built from. For what it's worth, I think this kind of astrology, as long as you're not paying for it, is mostly harmless. I mean, it's not like the president of America should be using it to make major decisions or anything. Oh my god! But it does demonstrate the first principle of why
Brocco!
psychics are so successful: the reinforcement
The healing
of
gaze.
desired beliefs. But it's only when we take this and combine it with the second principle that psychics become really powerful. Or I guess I should say convincing.
Maybe Eric.
Ah, hello, traveler. My name is David Tomorrow, and welcome to my psychic corner. Now, a lot of regular humans or terrestrials,
He looks like
as I call
Spock
them,
from the new Star Trek movies.
fear and even
He's a good-looking
doubt
dude.
my abilities. And so, let's say we begin with a simple
He's a prime criminal.
demonstration. I would like for you to pick a number between 1 and 100, but just so I can get a read on your mental thought matrix, let's add a few conditions. Let's say that the number has to have 2 digits.
Okay.
Neither of those digits can be the same, and let's say it has to be an odd number.
I'm thinking of
Okay.
73.
Have you got it?
73.
Okay. I will now reach across the beyond and read that number directly from your mind.
I'm ready.
Yes. Yes, I can see it.
Fuck no, he's onto me.
Yes,
He's onto me.
yes.
Shit. I'm
It
busted.
was your number.
Fuck.
37.
73 is
Okay.
that's 73 backwards.
Some of you
Ah!
picked 37 and some of you did not, but all this is a simple trick of probability. It might sound like I'm picking from a large pool of numbers, but it's a lot less so when we apply our 3 conditions.
Hey, 3
And out of
sub,
the pool
chill.
of remaining numbers, people have a psychological bias to choose 37, the second most common being 35, and I couldn't find
What about 73? That's an interesting coincidence, right? He got mine right reversed. Just when I thought I
a
outsmarted him.
satisfactory answer as to why this happens. I've just seen it referenced and recreated enough to know that it does. But if we wanted to make this even more convincing, all we'd have to do is go out into the street, which was the plan for this video before the world ended, and film this trick with random passers-by. And say I try this on 20 people. If it only works a quarter of the time, I can just edit together those 5 successful reactions and boom, I now have a convincing showreel of my
Yeah.
genuine psychic ability. Okay. Now, let's take that concept even further.
Ah, I see there's still some disbelievers among you. That's quite
Thanks,
alright.
Polar.
Perhaps a more extreme demonstration is in order. For you see, now I will reach across the planes of space and time and communicate with you directly.
Do it, I fucking dare you, pussy. You won't like what you find here.
I'm seeing a city by the sea. Ah, yes, Wisconsin, in the United States of America.
What?
I see
No, you don't know me at all.
a young man
What?
surrounded by small mechanical boxes, cameras.
What?
Yes, this young man sells cameras. And his name,
Is Charles White?
Ryan.
Oh, okay. You don't even
Ryan
care about me.
M. Yes, that's right, Ryan. I'm communicating with you directly. I hope you and Alyssa are doing well, and that your little cat is living life to its fullest. Stay well, my friend. The world is full of so many beautiful, unknowable things.
Get fucked, Ryan.
Okay, that
Idiot.
probably seemed really silly to 99% of you, and it was. But maybe a little less so if you're the real-life Ryan M, who may have just had the most surreal experience of his entire life. I'm sorry, Ryan, I hope that wasn't too weird. Who I know is a real person because they recently followed me on Twitter. A brief scan of the
Damn!
timeline giving me all the information I needed to...
This guy
contact
shit his fucking
portrait of
pants.
them. Sounds stupid? It is, but it's a trick so common it has a name. Hot reading. Which we will get back to
Yeah.
later, but
I
for
mean, that's
now,
a
what
very
I want
old
to
one,
focus
yeah.
on is how all this information was delivered.
Thanks to
If
resub.
you want to understand
Mafluro.
psychics, what's important isn't the information they give you directly, but the information they leave out. What made our first trick believable was the omission of how small a pool
That's
of
sweet,
numbers we were
BC.
actually
And
picking
yeah,
from, as
it was a
well
great
as the
stream, and he's a
knowledge
great
that people
streamer.
have a tendency to choose 37. And in the second case, it was the omission of the fact that I was using Ryan M's social media profile to create an accurate portrait of him. And this is the second principle of making people believe you're psychic, the obfuscation of information. And when
Or
these
you
two
could just have real
principles are combined,
superpowers.
it can create an effect
Then you
so
don't have to cheat.
powerful that even hundreds of years after your death, people will remember you for your incredible supernatural abilities. Nostradamus
Appreciate
was
it.
a 15th century French
Nick.
astrologer who people
hello,
still
Antonio.
talk about to this day due to his astounding power in prophesizing historical events that actually came to be. The French
He was actually the
Revolution,
worst
rise of Hitler,
predictor
the
of all
assassination
time.
JFK,
Like, he couldn't get anything
and
right.
even the terrorist attack of September 11th, of which he wrote, "Two steel birds will fall
Wrong.
from the sky on the metropolis. The sky will
Nostradamus
burn
was a
at
fucking
45
fraud.
degrees latitude. Fire approaches the great new city. Immediately, a huge scattered flame leaps up. Within months, rivers will flow with blood." It's hard to read these words and not be a little shook by the chilling accuracy of Nostradamus. It's just not real! This is how the
Yep.
believers of Nostradamus like to retroactively frame his writing. But in actual fact, what we're looking at here is several lines from different predictions spliced together.
Uh-huh.
The actual prediction he made that people do associate with 9/11 being earth-shaking fire from the center of the earth.
Thanks to
will
Prime
cause
Sid
tremors around
and
the new
Bird.
city. Two great rocks will war for a long time, then Arthusa will redden a new river. It's still kind of accurate, right?
Well, yeah. Arethusa's
Okay,
been here for a
let's look
minute.
at the actual solid information here. You have fire, a new city, or at least a city with new in the name,
And
the
Arethusa.
two.
Yeah.
That's it. So maybe it's referring to 9/11, or maybe it's referring to the 1835 Great Fire of New York City, in which 2 people died. It fits both
He's a tier
because
1
while Nostradamus'
Grantology.
predictions were beautifully written, they were incredibly vague, to the point that they didn't even have specific dates attached to them. And do you know how many he actually wrote? 942, and that's just in his book Les Prophéties alone. So, okay, think about this. If we made nearly
when I was younger,
1,000
I used to be
predictions
obsessed
about
with
a
the
bunch of
Nostradamus
things
shit.
that might happen
Guy
in
was
the
a
next
huge fucking scam
500
artist.
years, and some went on to kind of resemble future events. That's not a prediction, that's a statistical inevitability, and ignores how many of Nostradamus' prophecies never happened. I'm just saying we have yet to encounter a great and terrifying Sky King. And Nostradamus wasn't
can't
even
wait for that, though.
good at astrology. Other mid-century French astrologers used to talk shit about him for being bad at astrology. Nostradamus? More like Nostradamus! And there it was. The best joke I'd ever make. Wasted
click
on a
link, spooky.
500-year-old dead star wizard. So if even a dum-dum like me can pick apart Nostradamus' prophecies, why are they so believed? Well, what I think it comes back to is our 2 principles.
Just people
It's
want to
possible
believe this
frame his
shit.
predictions
That's
as
it.
accurate as long as you leave out how vague they actually were, the fact that they were undated, and the sheer number of them he made. And as for why people would want to believe them, well, I think this comes back to something much deeper. In nearly every case of claimed psychic abilities I've seen, it always comes with the promise
Thanks,
of
Yusuf
giving
Cruz.
relief from one of humanity's 2 great fears.
This was
First
great, by the way. If anyone doesn't know, this is actually kind of recent. This guy was doing a demonstration to prove that the Lord has chosen him to do, like, the Lord's bidding. So to prove it, he brought this man back from the dead. It's pretty wonderful, actually.
Being death, which we'll come back to later, and the second being the future. His predictions let people believe that there was some knowable order to the sheer rampant chaos of everything that will happen and everything that might happen. The future is terrifying, constantly, and Nostradamus gave people the illusion that it could be known and understood. And it's powerful promises like
Laugh
that
while
that
you
make just
can, the
about
Sky
anyone
King is coming.
vulnerable to belief in the supernatural. And I really mean
Yeah.
anyone, even the US military. In the late 60s, a piece of footage aired on Russian television that terrified high-ranking US officials. A Russian woman moving objects across a table with just her mind.
Jesus fucking Christ, she's too
What's so
powerful.
frightening is that at
She
this
can move
point,
soda cans.
America and Russia were locked in the Cold War, a conflict carried out primarily through espionage and information. And if Russia was actually tapping into some latent psychic
Rexa
force,
WrestleMania?
America
Sounds like a
needed
horrible
to
meme.
do the same.
Maybe after this,
And
though.
This was the beginning of Project Stargate, a covert
That's pretty cool.
government-funded operation in which the US military spent 20 years trying to create psychic super soldiers. If you've never heard of this,
And then they
know
succeeded,
how insane it sounds, but it's
which
all
led to
backed up
my
by
birth.
Official government documents released in 1995, as well as the reporting of journalist John Ronson. Test subjects would sit alone in isolated rooms where they would attempt to telepathically read images from the minds of other isolated subjects and draw the images they saw in a practice known as remote viewing. They train in psychic-based martial arts designed to
What the
disrupt and
fuck?
confuse enemies they saw to telepathically read images
So they
from
just-
the minds of other isolated
What a
subjects
fucking miserable
and draw the
program.
images they saw in a practice.
Imagine the program worked. They actually made psychic super soldiers, but all they could identify of the enemy is when they were thinking of birds. What a fucking dumb I cannot believe. Well, I can. I mean, we're still at this point for the most part, I'd say. It's not like we're smarter.
This known as remote viewing. They train in psychic-based martial arts designed to disrupt and confuse enemies with no physical contact. They'd reportedly ram themselves into walls repeatedly in an attempt to phase through them, and would even infamously spend hours every day performing psychic attacks on goats in an attempt to make their hearts explode. The really weird
I
part
hope that
being
worked.
there's a number of ex-military personnel who claim they were successful, that they had witnessed instances of intense psychic effort leading to goats and other small animals dropping dead from non-physical attacks. However, this has never been confirmed by any kind of documentation.
We
or
can just take their
replicated in
word, they
any
wouldn't
kind of
lie.
scientific study. Project Stargate was shut down in the mid-90s after the overwhelming majority of experiments were deemed unsuccessful,
Thanks to
finding
Prime
little
Matt,
to no
Resub
evidence
Drip,
of any paranormal
Sickle,
ability
Digital Knight, and
whatsoever,
Techno,
having cost the US
and Naruf.
taxpayer an estimated $20 million, which would be closer to $100 million by today's standards, and stands as such an odd piece of historical lunacy, but a little less so when you look at the position the US military was in. While fear of Russia was definitely part of it, the 1970s also saw America pull out of the Vietnam War, a massively costly
Imagine if we used
conflict
psychic
that saw the
soldiers for
death
that,
of
though.
50,000 US soldiers, as well as many, many times that in Vietnamese civilians, traumatizing a generation and receiving massive public backlash, ending in a disastrous, costly humiliation for the US military. And the concept of psychic super soldiers, operatives that could obtain enemy information without ever stepping foot on the battlefield or disable enemy forces without direct conflict, that could change the face of
These are a bit
war,
fancy
save the lives
in
of
the Resub Small Meat.
thousands, and potentially lead to more peaceful solutions.
I appreciate
to
that. Thank you,
conflict
Grant, and
resolution.
welcome.
And that was a desire so strong, all it took was a Russian lady performing simple parlor tricks for the US military to believe it. And it's promises just like this that would let a new breed of celebrity psychic gather infamy across the world, the biggest emerging directly from Project Stargate, and his name was Uri Geller. Uri Geller first rose to prominence
Wow,
when, in a test
I've never heard of
carried
him.
out by the Stanford Research Institute, scientists concluded not only did he have the ability to telepathically read images from the minds of other people, but also to physically manipulate metal with his mind. The footage of
Magneto,
Geller doing
fuck
this
yeah.
was staggering. Genuine
Whoa.
displays of psychic abilities played in front of millions of people. Every daytime talk show, every news segment wanted Geller, transforming him into a bona fide pop culture phenomenon. And it was all backed by real scientific evidence.
Thanks, you said real-
Even the
or
CIA
Will
conducted
Waitley.
a study on Geller in which they concluded he demonstrated his paranormal perceptual abilities in a convincing, unambiguous
Man, maybe
manner.
science isn't that
At one point,
accurate.
Geller even went
Which is
on
making me
live
question
American
science itself.
television and unleashed a psychic blast across the country, only for the show to receive dozens of phone calls from people reporting strange psychic occurrences. TV sets would flicker and warp, and animals would react in strange ways.
It just
It was
blows up the
nearly
house cat through the
impossible not to
TV.
buy into the fervor surrounding Geller. Not only did he fit beautifully into the popular movement of 70s New Age spiritualism, here was a man that was proof that humans could be more than human, that inside every one of us lay massive amounts of untapped potential. And it was such an amazing concept, and one that Geller grew very, very
Holy
rich
shit,
on.
how
And as
tall is he?
did, waves of other psychics entered public consciousness, all taking what had once been small town acts to a now national level. Faith healers
I
like
love
Peter
Marble Olympics.
Popoff would cram thousands of feverish believers into gigantic megatents. God providing Popoff with the details about his followers' personal lives, where they lived, their relatives, and even the diseases that plagued their bodies.
Oh yeah, fuck
Giving
yeah.
Popoff
Was that
the
Vince
power
McMahon?
to burn
Take
cancer
that.
from the sick and let the wheelchair-bound walk again. Bathing his audiences in the healing light of God, all proof that the spiritual could overcome the physical.
It's not a
And it was
cult.
such a beautiful
It's magic.
idea. It was just a lie. And the person who would expose this came not in the
Randy.
form of a scientist, but a magician.
My
His
man.
name was the amazing Randy. The thing that Randy was most keen to point out is that scientists
I think he's dead
were
now, right?
just as
Or maybe that's just what he
susceptible
wants
the
us to
tricks of
believe.
Psychics as regular people. And so if you wanted to catch them, you needed experts in the psychology of stage magic and sleight of hand, which Randy very much was. He actually ran away to join the circus as a child before becoming a noted escape magician, but in his later years became known in magical circles as the psychic hitman, as he'd host TV specials where he would bring
I didn't realize how
supposed
important he
psychics
was
on
to
stage
stopping
and
pseudoscience.
kneecap them in front
Well, it's not
of
pseudoscience,
live
scams.
audiences, exposing their tricks and revealing them as frauds. There was a definite schadenfreude to watching psychics struggle to explain why their abilities no longer worked.
It seems something went a bit wrong this time. What explanation could there be, James?
Well, it's quite possible that this has been the first time that I've ever attempted this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite possible that I've allowed myself to come into it, okay?
But this is what let Randy gain notoriety and set his sights on even bigger targets, one of whom was Peter Popoff. While Popoff
Peter
claimed his
fucking
abilities were divine,
I thought this was Joe Pesci. Peter Popoff's my fucking boy. I've talked about Peter Popoff a lot. Someone even sent me his holy water. Peter Popoff has that incredible water. Oh my, I love Peter Popoff. This guy's the man. I didn't recognize him at all. Holy shit. I guess I only know what he looks like when he's old as fuck. Oh. But yeah, Miracle Spring Water is the one I'm talking about. It's fucking crazy. He says it cures everything and makes you taller or whatever. It's really cool.
Verdict in your life. You don't have to live a life sentence of lack and defeat. You
I used
can
to
be
the tier
free
1
to
Guinea
enjoy
dollar
all
and
of
tier 1
God's
donkey.
richest
To give
blessings.
some
That's
TBR.
why he wants to send you your free packet of Miracle Spring Water.
Did you try it? Yep.
Your point
I
of
drank it.
contact for the miracle you need.
Still not
Now
taller.
in a larger size.
I had been in 2 car accidents, and the doctors kept saying, well, here, you got to take painkillers. I used your Miracle Spring Water, and it's gone.
The banks had told me that I could not.
Oh, yeah, he
go
also
into
says
the
it gives you
home.
money.
I prayed, I believed, I followed every instruction, and on May 26th, we closed on our dream home.
Stop settling on less.
God.
And reach for God's best.
I love Peter Popoff.
Operation conducted by Randy revealed that the voice speaking to him was not God, but his wife, who would relay people's information from prayer cards they'd fill out before the show, transmitting the information to Popoff through a small radio receiver in his ear, all of which Randy exposed on live television.
I'm talking to you. Can you hear me? If you can't, you're in trouble.
Uh-oh.
Right there on your right side. Okay, she lives at 4267 Masterson.
It's like cheating in the spelling bee.
The healing effects of Popoff's sermons being nothing more than the adrenaline rush he'd create with his charisma and showmanship, his divine healing fading once the show was over.
Actually, the oldest cheating strategy in the book.
However, Randy had an even bigger target in mind, and it was Uri Geller.
Yeah.
One by one, Randy would recreate each of Geller's tricks with sleight of hand and perform them on live television, even following Geller across the country. Geller would appear on a talk show stunning hosts with his psychic power, and Randy would appear on the same show the next week exposing exactly how he did it.
Randy's so good.
Recreating Geller's psychic blast across America by doing the same through a radio DJ who made no claim of being psychic, only for dozens of people calling in with the same reports of psychic phenomena. The trick being that if you send a psychic blast out to hundreds of thousands of people, at least a few of them are going to by sheer coincidence notice something odd and conflate it with psychic power. Randy and Geller hated each other.
I love Randy.
Geller accusing Randy of trying to destroy his career and even sued him multiple times, all of which were unsuccessful.
He was trying to destroy your
Randy
career
even
for good reason.
stated, "I want to be cremated and I want my ashes blown into Uri Geller's eyes." The apex of the battle between the magician and the psychic came
Fuck, Randy's cool.
when Geller made an appearance on the Johnny Carson show, in which Carson, unbeknownst to Geller, had received instructions from Randy on how to prepare the props for Uri's tricks, and to not let Geller or his people near them before the show. And the results were, well...
Alright, we are back.
Is it tier 1 Drado?
You don't feel what, strong tonight?
I don't
Is that
feel strong.
Yeah, we have 3 empty canisters there, and we have 7 over here,
And a bent spoon.
and a spoon that's got a slight bend in it.
Geller was humiliated, but if he was a fraud, how was he able to fool the CIA? Well, the interesting part there is that if you do read the government study, it does all sound pretty impressive until you get to the line, "Good results were obtained in the 4 days where there was no openly skeptical observer." That's not how science works. And so both
What the fuck?
Popoff, publicly disgraced, disappeared into obscurity, never to make a single cent more from their fraudulent psychic abilities. Only that's not what happened at all. Both men would continue to make massive amounts of money. Popoff
Goddamn
just
right.
shifted his act to sell his blessed healing holy water.
Yes! That's fucking right.
Stop settling on less.
Oh, he even played the
God
commercial.
best. God is a God of more, and now there's more miracle spring water in a new, larger package.
And Uri would go on to make many interesting business ventures and would eventually claim that he wished to be known as a mystifier as opposed to a psychic, but still constantly
Gorilla.
reinforces the idea that he has supernatural powers to this day, including, and I am not making this up, writing a letter to Theresa May claiming he would psychically stop Brexit,
And he
containing
did.
the very normal sentence, "3 years before you became Prime Minister, I predicted your victory when I showed you Winston Churchill's spoon on my Cadillac, which I asked you to touch." What are we doing?
Can't argue with that.
Randy, meanwhile, would go on to offer a $1 million cash prize to anyone who could prove they had legitimate psychic power, of which hundreds of people applied and none were successful. Randy continuing his fight to disprove psychics and expose frauds for the rest of his career. And the thing was, people hated him for it.
Thanks for
He
5
was
gift
seen as
subs,
this
King Cocos.
cold, vindictive,
Thank you, King
scientific
Cocos.
entity, attacking innocent spiritualists and pushing back on a movement that was ultimately harmless.
No, you say Uri Geller's a fake. You came here and you're giving everybody a lot of lip service, and you haven't done anything except show us a lot of tricks that you learned out of your two-bit act that you're not working in.
Sounds like Twitter as a person.
And this brings us to a really important question. Is there actual danger in
Yes.
people claiming to be psychic?
Yes. They literally
Sylvia
get
Brown
scammed.
rose to fame in the late 80s.
They
She'd
lose
appear
so much
on
money
daytime
on this
talk
shit. They
shows
prey on
demonstrating
vulnerable
her
people.
ability to
I hate
channel
it.
the dead. Those spirits giving her visions of the future, letting her instantaneously diagnose people's medical conditions, and most infamously, allow her to help locate missing and dead people. Something she was very, very
Black
bad
Dwarf
at.
and Toxic
I
Industry.
lost my boyfriend tragically a few years ago. They never found him. And I've had such a hard time since. Every day.
The reason why you didn't find him is because he's in water. You can't find somebody.
Well, it was September 11th. There was no. He was a fireman, but. There was no,
Oh,
I keep seeing him in water.
holy
Yes,
shit.
He couldn't breathe and he was filled
Oh,
with water. Well,
fuck.
if they were trying to put the fire out, come on, town.
They could have, you know, yeah.
What Sylvia is trying
Damn,
to
she-
do here is a technique
she
known
killed her own
as
career
code
right there.
reading, a trick mediums use to convince people they're actually talking to dead people and accessing information they never otherwise could have. When in reality, what they're actually doing is leading with a very general statement that has a high likelihood of being true, particularly in a room full of people.
And there's some type of restriction, and then he just tells me that he died suddenly.
I am being pulled into the section. Somebody passed in a car accident.
I want to say there's either a Suzanne or a Susie connection to this.
Starting with a gentleman, Reg, and he's also mentioned Frank.
Like, I don't think
And
anyone
then
needs an
with some
explanation on how it's
bites honing
bullshit,
in on
right? Like, it's pretty
details with
obvious.
Precise, manipulative wording. So, for example, you could say,
It's not even,
"Your
like, well
father
done."
Didn't have an interest in cars, did he? This is a good bet because most men of a certain age and generation like cars. And so, if the answer is yes, hey, you were right. But if the answer is no, you were also right because you already planted a negative in the original statement. And now you can just option select into, I didn't think so, and move on to your next gamble unscathed. Cold reading can be incredibly convincing.
People still believe this. Stop acting like society today is smarter than it was back
Sylvia,
then. People believe this shit
I don't know
probably
how
more
she
so
died.
now than ever.
Please, if you can, how did she die? She was shot. She just collapsed in her room. I don't know, but something looks like combustion.
They found
in the
nothing on the
chest.
autopsy.
I don't care,
Nothing.
but it looks like something hit her in the chest.
The reason I'm focusing on Sylvia isn't just because she was bad at cold reading, it's because despite the fact she was so bad at it, she was still massively successful.
Yeah, that's
she charged
fucking crazy.
$750 for a 30-minute psychic
Holy
cold
shit.
reading. She released 57 books, one of which was about what dead celebrities were doing in the afterlife, and even had people pay thousands of dollars to join her on psychic cruises. That is how easy it is to succeed in this business. But where this goes from shameful to truly abhorrent is her work in finding missing persons.
Yeah, hold on. I need to pee real bad. I'm gonna fill up my water as well. So just give me 2 seconds. Sorry to blue ball you, but I'll hit you with a psychic blast to hold you over while I'm gone. Alright, be right back. Alright, hit you with the brown note. Sorry, change your pants. 1 sec. Okay, I'm back. Thanks for the resub, Rada. And the bits D Pro.
At multiple points, she's predicted
true
a
elemental,
missing
yeah.
child to be alive, giving the parents hope, only for that child to be found dead.
She's not dead, but for some reason she was taken and put into some kind of slavery thing and taken into Japan.
Whoa, what the fuck?
4 years later, the little girl's remains were found near Fort Worth, Texas. An autopsy showed she was killed shortly after vanishing.
She's given tips on missing children's
Holy
cases
shit.
that led nowhere and diverted attention away from the actual investigation.
Case in point, just listen to what Sylvia Brown told Sean Hornbeck's parents about their son's kidnapper nearly 4 years ago on the Montel Williams
God, the
show.
quality's bad.
The guy was dark-skinned.
Is he still with us?
Thankfully, Sean Hornbeck was found last week alive and well. His alleged abductor, Michael Devlin, is not Hispanic, and he didn't have dreadlocks at the time of the abduction.
And she even once told a mother that her
Holy
missing daughter
shit.
was dead, only for that daughter to be found 6 years later alive, the victim of a kidnapping. The mind-melting tragedy being that by this point, the girl's mother had died, never to learn her daughter was still alive. This woman is a ghoul, a vulture of misery, but for as awful as she was, she's not alone. There's
Is she still
bizarre
alive?
trend in missing persons cases, particularly with children, where dozens of psychics descend on the victim's family, all offering different readings on how they can find their child, or even more grimly,
No,
communicate
she's dead.
with them in the afterlife.
Alright, I'm getting a psychic reading of my own right now, actually. I think she's somewhere very hot.
With their deceased loved ones,
Yeah,
have paid
interesting.
psychics hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I get it, it's easy to victim blame here, to ask how anyone could be so gullible as to fall for this. But according to Bob Nygaard, a private investigator who works exclusively in psychic fraud, the
He looks like a
one
psychic fraud
characteristic of his
detector.
clients is deep personal trauma. These are people who have had their lives destroyed by sickness, by abuse, by loss, damaged, vulnerable people who want to believe that death isn't the end, that they could still have one more moment with the person they loved.
Thanks to Resub Jackal.
Can't
Bits
blame them
Gothic.
for that, but I can absolutely blame the parasites who prey on them. There's another deeper, arguably more troubling layer to all this, and that's when supernatural fantasies become so strong they start to inflict physical damage on people. Take, for example, the Breatharians, a spiritual movement that insists that humans do not need food to survive.
Oh, I
but
remember
can
these guys.
instead draw their nutrition from the energy of the sun and universe. Now, other YouTubers have come under attack for not presenting a balanced view of Breatharianism, so allow me to list
No,
some
they
of the
haven't.
positive points.
No one has come under attack
Grocery
from
bill
Breatharians. There's like 9 of them.
You will meet some interesting people. You will lose weight. Some folk say it feels nice. Now, it has killed several people. I actually wasn't planning on touching Breatharianism in this video, mainly because my buddy Atrocity Guide had already done a great breakdown of it, until her video was taken down by noted Breatharian Peter Strawbinger, and oh, you shouldn't have done that, Peter, because now you're in this video and a lot more people are going to see that you're attempting to control a narrative you have no business controlling. By the way, go support Atrocity Guide, she makes fantastic stuff.
Atrocity Guide is fucking absolutely
By now,
great.
I hope it's becoming apparent that the real danger
Is the
of
video
all
back
this
up? I'd like to
stuff
watch
is
the
it becomes a
Breatharianism.
means to believe, well, whatever you want, but the price is a disassociation with reality, and at worst can trap people in a
Makes you tier
delusion
1
so
carrot.
strong, even human life becomes meaningless. On the 14th of November 1996, noted UFO expert Dr. Courtney Brown called into the Art Bell radio show, an associate of Brown's having captured a photo of the Halley-Bopp comet, only to find a large glowing object traveling beside it. And through intensive psychic remote viewing sessions, Brown and his students had discovered the object was mechanical in nature, was on a trajectory to pass by Earth, and was attempting to communicate with us.
That the thing was both fast and spurting. Interesting, because all of the stuff
Heaven's Gate.
and it was funneled.
Yep, this is Heaven's Gate. I can already tell.
Great. All right. He also figured out in the emotions column of the Matrix, he had emotions of dread, concentration, fear.
This broadcast was heard by millions, Art Bell's website crashing from the legions of ecstatic and terrified people convinced that humanity's first genuine encounter...
114 million, almost 114 million encounters? Whoa. I had no idea the whole Heaven's Gate thing was that popular. Damn. Fuck me, Art.
With an extraterrestrial was at hand. On the evening of the comet, 39 people entered a small diner in San Diego, all with the same cropped hairstyle and all ordered the same identical meal: iced tea, salad, turkey, and blueberry cheesecake. That night, all 39 were found dead. They committed suicide as part of the Heaven's Gate cult, all convinced that by leaving their mortal bodies, their souls could board the spacecraft flying alongside the comet and ascend past humanhood. When the comet did pass, there was no sighting of any kind of object beside it. And still, somehow, it gets darker than even this. Psychics and faith healers have
But maybe they did make it to the spaceship. Who knows?
Their own supernatural healing as a replacement for legitimate medicine.
This is your husband has is not cancer. It's something on a spiritual level that has been sent towards him.
If you've got pills as an act of faith, I want you just to throw them out the aisles. Those of you up in the balcony, just throw them over the side.
Yeah, get rid of that shit. Fuck it.
I don't know how destructive this can be. I'm gonna read out a list of names: Mary Welch, Austin Sprout, Madeline Newman, Neil Beagley, Ava Worthington, Rocky Sevi,
Free Xanax. I mean, it's Peter Popoff. You absolutely know he went on the floor and started crawling and taking the pills.
From simple preventable diseases because their parents chose to treat things like appendicitis and bladder infections with spiritual healing as opposed to traditional medicine. And this list is not even close to being complete. There's a religious faith healing group called the Followers of Christ Church, which some of the names here are from, and their graveyard is littered with the headstones of children ranging from 1 day to 1 week old, with an infant mortality rate of 10 times what's normal. And I don't know what's more horrifying, that there are places like Idaho that to this day protect this kind of faith healing under law, or how the parents of some of these children try and justify what they've done.
I would like to remind you that this country was founded on religious freedom. Whenever you try to restrict one person or another in any fashion, then you're chipping away at freedom.
My Bible, my Jesus Christ, tells me to put my faith and trust in him. I don't put limitations on God.
It's hard for me not to look at this footage and not think of the line from James Randi's book, "When reason sleeps, monsters come forth." Randy knew the danger that lay in dragging people into the delusional world of the supernatural.
Thanks to resub, Chevelle.
And he spent his entire life trying to warn us. James Randi passed away last year, and we lost a real hero. But part of that tragedy is that we need him now more than we ever have. Because this stuff isn't getting better. It's getting worse.
A lot worse. A lot worse.
All the debunking, all the exposed scams, the measurable loss of human life. Psychics have never been more popular. The psychic industry currently estimated at $2.3 billion at a growth rate of 53% since 2005. The pandemic leaving people isolated and vulnerable, only spiking those numbers.
God, that's gotta be awful gothic,
is
yeah.
The rise of a new breed of celebrity psychic. Remember that guy who called grandma a bitch at the beginning of this video? This clown is John Edwards, and he isn't some back alley psychic. He regularly appears on daytime talk shows in front of millions of people. He had his own show that ran for years, and this is not uncommon. In 2019, the New York Times ran an article in which supposed psychic Thomas John was exposed for hot reading at a live event. That's right, the same stupid bullshit I pulled earlier in this video. Only the information he was using came from fabricated Facebook posts that were planted by a group trying to catch him.
Nice.
Maria. Do you know who that is? Because he's bringing up Maria. Now, I don't want to scare you, but have you had
probably
your
not
heart
so.
checked? So your dog is here. Must be your dog because there's a dog.
This was called Operation Pizza Roll, and did it destroy Thomas John's career?
Nope.
No, within a year he had his own TV show called Seatbelt Psychic, which was promoted by massive celebrities like James fucking Corden, who peddled his...
If James Corden ever says something is good, I know it fucking sucks ass. There are few people I dislike more in Hollywood than James Corden. I've never even once accidentally found even the slightest bit of enjoyment from anything James Corden has ever done in his whole fucking life.
Garbage to
Just
their
needed to do a little
26
James
million
Corden bit.
YouTube followers, and who knows how many more in national TV audience. This is a huge part of why this stuff is so hard to end, because the media constantly reintroduces it back into the news cycle for the simple reason that we found a real psychic is always going to make a more compelling headline than psychics still aren't real. The same way Sylvia Browne got her claws into America in the 80s, modern psychics are being promoted in an identical fashion. Teresa Capito, Matt Fraser, Alison Dubois, Cara Margolis. I could go on, but I don't
know any of them.
want to.
What the
These
fuck?
people are still shoving their hands up
the
the
fuck? I don't
asses
know any
of
of them.
chickens, and we're applauding them. But now there's an even more dangerous evolution of this. A new kind of celebrity psychic, but ones with the backing of gigantic multinational media corporations.
TikTok stars.
If you want to see this, look no further than Tyler Henry.
Oh. Who?
With an estimated net worth of $1.7 million, Tyler Henry rose to prominence with his ongoing 4-season smash hit TV show, Hollywood Medium with Tyler Henry.
Never heard of
in which
it.
He performs psychic readings for celebrities like the Kardashians, LaToya Jackson, Megan Fox, Boy George, Bella Thorne. The most popular clips of him doing this gathering as many as 10 million views. And his readings are convincing, especially if you ignore how much they resemble both cold and hot reading, as well as the fact that he's doing this with celebrities whose personal information and family history is publicly available.
Yeah, how impressive. He can
Again,
read
just
Wikipedia
ask
pages.
yourself, what is the information we're not seeing here? This guy is surrounded by a gigantic entertainment conglomerate in the E! Network, who has a financial incentive to make him appear as legitimate as possible, especially when most of the celebrities he's reading for are part of that same network. So if he wanted access to the personal information of someone, he has
Being a
means to
psychic
get
these
it.
days is
And
the
because
easiest
of the
thing,
highly
because everyone
edited
posts their whole
nature
life
of
on
these
Twitter.
episodes, we're never going to
I don't know
see
how you believe
when he
anything
gets
like this.
something wrong. So which sounds more reasonable? Everything I just said, or that this 25-year-old is actually talking to ghosts and is the one exception to everything humanity has ever recorded about the observable universe. And even then, he does occasionally slip, like at a press conference in 2016 when he was asked about Trump's future in the 2016 election, in which he gave a non-committal, "I've been watching him and I'm not worried." Maybe you should have worried a little, Tyler. He's also stated that he would be open to working with the police on missing persons cases.
Ah, just what they
Tyler,
needed.
Do not do that. And Tyler, if you are watching this, and I get the feeling you will, because I think you're the kind of person who Googles your own name, I don't care if you believe you're psychic. I don't care if you believe you're doing good. I care that you are promoting an industry that has destroyed lives and manipulated millions, and you and every other psychic who profits off their
But he can read
supposed abilities
celebrities.
without proving it under any kind of legitimate scientific testing should be so deeply ashamed. This brings us to the final
Thanks to some Maddie Zilla.
psychics,
Thick
and one that has
thighs
the
save lives
potential to
and
do
something
more
clever.
damage than any other.
And
Social
Kaze.
media. I've noticed a growing number of psychics operating off platforms like TikTok.
Yeah.
I've made the decision to not call these people out at this point for the reason that they all currently have a much smaller following than mine, and I don't enjoy
No, not Twitch!
But what I am going to say to these people is I am watching, and if you don't want to appear in one of these videos, find another way to get followers. Before we finish, I want to address what I think is going to be a pretty
God, they're amongst us in
counter-argument
Twitch!
for this video.
Ah!
The idea that saying all psychics are deceitful based on a couple of bad examples is like saying all restaurants are bad based on a couple of cases of food poisoning. But the difference here is that poison isn't a necessity of cooking.
Thanks to Prime
Deceit
Poople.
is a necessity of psychics, and that's going to be true until it's proved otherwise. I don't think all psychics are evil. I think some are just delusional. But either way, they're promoting
Doesn't mean they
the
can't be
same
evil.
lie and normalizing it to ordinary people, and in doing so, making them vulnerable to the kind of predatory abuse we've seen this entire video. Okay, I feel like the only question left is why? Why out of all the problems in the
some
world
watered.
am I making a video
Thanks for the
about
10, Billy.
psychics?
The Prime.
And the truth is that this video isn't really about psychics. I mean, it is, but it isn't. What we're talking about here isn't really people who can channel aliens or bend spoons or talk to the dead. This is about how people choose what they believe in. And if your takeaway from this video is that dumb people will believe in silly things, I have failed at my job. People want to believe in things that bring them comfort, and they will, even if those things are incorrect, as long as that information is presented in the right way. Everyone is vulnerable to this. It has nothing to do with education or intelligence.
Damn, this is like
This
a
closer
huge
to an
fact
exploited
spitting
human
section.
condition. The world is terrifying, constantly, and we so badly need comfort from the chaos that is happening all around us all the time. And it's that makes us vulnerable, not just to psychics, but to any number of people willing to distort reality to their own end. We're coming out of a year that saw even the basic
Maybe
nature
two on a
of
lane.
information become
some
so
Stunky, give some Floyd.
distorted and corrupted. So I think we need to start having conversations about how we choose what we believe. Because if we can't decide on something as simple as psychics, what hope do we have for everything
Fuck letting
else?
people choose what they
Or,
believe.
as
They clearly
Isaac
can't be trusted. I'll
Asimov
choose
wrote
for
in
them
the
from now
introduction
on.
to James Randi's book that is so much truer now than it was 40 years ago. Folly and fakery have always been with us, but it has never before been as dangerous as it is now. Never in history have we been able to afford it less.
Here's the Bits Elemental, the Prime Holland, the Bits Albatross.
Oh, friends, thank you.
That was
for
a good
joining me.
video.
I really hope you enjoyed this video and that you got something out of it.
Yeah, I didn't think I'd watch the whole thing. I fucking love psychics, faith healers, and mediums. That shit is the goofiest thing. But yeah, obviously it's extremely dangerous, but I mean, no matter what you say to someone who believes these things, they will never change their way. No matter what. Try and argue that astrology is fake to someone that's super big into it. They're not going to change. They'll just ignore you. So, I mean, it's worthless. Might as well just laugh at it. Like, even in Randy's time, who conclusively disproved the psychics, as you saw, they still went on to be multi-millionaires, extremely successful people. So as long as someone wants to believe it, they'll believe it. Nothing you can do about it. God, that was a really cool video, though. I hadn't even heard of any of those new psychics. Let me see Tyler Henry. You in the chat, Tyler?